So my name's Roger Ward. I'm from the ARDC. I'm a solutions architect, and I'm here with Kylie, who's our sensitive data expert, and Jude Channon, who's a project manager and PhD candidate with the ARDC. And our guest today is Matt Gorringe, and we've got Rebecca from PHRN, who's the CEO of the PHRN. I'd just like to make an acknowledgement of country. We acknowledge and celebrate the first Australians on whose traditional lands we meet, and we pay our respects to their elders, past and present. And just to note, we are recording this session, and Matt has said that it's okay to record it and we can put it up on the website afterwards as well. So you'll be able to go back or share it with colleagues if necessary. So thanks for that, Matt. And welcome to Matt. I'll give Matt an introduction. Matt leads the Data and Research Services Division at the Sax Institute, overseeing secure, unified research environment, which is SURE, the 45 and up study, and the 18 and up study. With more than 20 years experience across health survey, design and implementation, large-scale data collection, data governance, and secure research infrastructure. He brings deep expertise in managing complex data environments and research operations. And also, just to note, the ARDC did a trusted research environments framework document a couple of years ago, and Matt was one of the editors on that document. So he is a real expert in this area, and he was fantastic when we were doing our framework, and he made substantial contributions to that. So without further ado, welcome to Matt.
Thanks very much, Roger. That was a great introduction. It always sounds better when somebody else reads your bio than when you've written it. I've just had a bit of a look at the attendance here, and I see some familiar faces. So I'll launch straight into the presentation. So it's going to be in three parts. I'll give an update on SURE's impact and its features and how it's used. I will have a quick question and answer session, probably 20 minutes, I'd say, depending on the level of interest and what questions are asked. And then the last section is really about our most recent consultations with stakeholders around the country, what they've told us and what we're doing to respond. So here we go. I just need to find the share again. Lovely. I should say, first of all, that, of course, SURE, since its inception, has been supported by the Population Health Research Network as part of the Australian Government's National Collaborative Research Infrastructure Strategy, NCRIS, and that support continues today, and we're extremely thankful for it. I'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation here in Glebe in Sydney, as the owners of the land on which the Sax Institute office is located, and pay my respects to Aboriginal elders past, present and emerging. I've just been through the session plan. The times are a rough guide. Certainly we can take longer for the Q&A if we want to, and there's a little bit of fat there in that timing, so we should be right to get through it. SURE's been around for ages. It's had a massive impact on data liberation, particularly the use of linked data in health research. So just a bit of background about the Sax Institute. We're an independent not-for-profit with 20 years experience and an international reputation as an evidence specialist. We test best practice approaches. We work now with our research partners. We've got 74 research partners, that's institutions around Australia who are members of the Institute. And we work really closely with them to deliver those insights and intelligence for policy agencies. We're particularly focused on research for change. Great. We offer a lot of services. This is a continuum. Sometimes you see the policy research cycle as a bit of as a circle, an actual cycle. This is how we express it, as a continuum. But we offer services like modelling, a lot of evaluation work, evidence synthesis and evidence brokerage as well. But the The critical part that we're talking about here is our data and research assets. That means SURE as an enabling infrastructure for data linkage use, but it also might include our 45 and up study and 18 and up study, which we're really excited about. That kicked off just in the last 12 months. Why do we need trusted research environments? It was hard to judge the audience, and looking in the room, I think many people will be well aware of this, but clearly we need to ensure that there's a way for custodians to comply with the Privacy Act and all various sorts of jurisdictional legislation and regulation. SURE is really useful when researchers go to human research ethics committees and have to answer the questions about data security. We find that as soon as we write SURE into the proposal, that's the last question the ethics committee asks about those things. Clearly, as data sets get larger, as linkage becomes more broad in scope, as more data sets are linked together, the possibility of re-identification is very real, despite the fact that SURE only holds de-identified data. So that risk is still there. And of course, trusted research environments, secure access environments, whatever we call them, they're just one layer of risk mitigation in ensuring that the possibility of re-identification or disclosure of private information is prevented. They give data custodians and ethics committees the confidence to approve the release of data, and I think that's probably the main impact of SURE. To some extent, because they're remote access environments by and large, they also enable collaboration between researchers and doing that safely without leakage of data, let's say. What's our impact? It's immense. As I said, SURE has been supported by the PHRN and NCRIS since its inception in 2011. At last count, more than 1,600 researchers and policy analysts have used SURE. There's currently over 800 people using it on 375 projects. They're academic researchers by and large, that's the most common group, but also government agencies and to some degree private industry as users. All of them have ethics and custodian approval, and we see the small number of people in private industry using SURE are generally working on behalf of government on critical policy questions. We now hold data from more than 50 data custodian partners from every jurisdiction. Their administrative data sets, clinical registries, cohort studies, and we hold some really sensitive data from people like the Department of Social Services and the Australian Taxation Office. Not to say that the health data that we hold isn't sensitive as well. I guess we have to work across a range of different security requirements for different jurisdictions and even sometimes within jurisdictions. There are 46 research institution partners, and they're in every state and territory again. Those partners, might have multiple different research centres or projects using SURE. I've just popped in shorthand a few stats there about who our users are, and you can see the sort of breakdown. By and large, they are academics at universities. Some government policy analysts themselves use SURE, so sharing data within government agencies or across government agencies is a really common use for SURE. And increasingly, we're focusing on the future, which is the ability to house and share enduring linked data assets and to provide custom governance models that reflect the use of those assets to really maximise the benefit that you can get from an enduring linked data asset. Examples that most people, I'm sure, are aware of that would be, the National Health Data Hub and PLIDA, but there are many other enduring assets around the country, that some of which are hosted in SURE and some of which we'd like to host in SURE. SURE's an open access system by design, and this comes back to the mission of NCRIS, the PHRN and the Sax Institute. Open access means that if you have approval from the custodian and an ethics committee to use SURE, then we are open to your use of SURE. I'll talk a bit about our fee structure, but it's the same fees for all users, anyone who approaches us. It's not limited to a group of universities, and we really love that. The breadth and impact of our work reflects the fact that we can have such a diverse range of people coming to us wanting to use Shore to enable linked data access. We're really proud of our advanced analytics capabilities. This is something that I'll talk about in detail later, but we do have GPUs, thanks again to investment from the PHRN and NCRIS. We have various ways of delivering our virtual machines in terms of operating systems and analysis applications to be really flexible. We're finding machine learning, image analysis, and the use of genomic data requires some customization there. And I'm going to talk a lot about the Shore 3.0 enhancement project after our Q&A session. How does it work? Many of you might know this, but at the moment, Shore provides project-specific workplaces through remotely encrypted internet connections. We're using Citrix, I say, at the moment. We're certainly investigating lots of different ways of delivering virtual machines. These workspaces are project-specific to enable or to comply with data separation standards required by custodians. Importantly, we deliver our workspaces and virtual machines ready to operate for researchers, so there's absolutely no setup required by the researcher. We have really high power virtual machines. We provide up to 128 gigabytes of RAM and 8 CPUs as standard for sort of standard CPU-based machines, but really we're only limited by the operating systems and the analysis applications' ability to use more RAM or more commonly to use more CPUs. No project data can be combined from one to another project. We are able to transfer data between workspaces in situations where we have the approval to do that. But generally, that data minimization standard is really strictly enforced through the workspaces being on completely different networks and unable to talk to each other. Shore operates its own dedicated servers and storage devices. We're not on commercial cloud. And some of the reasons for that, well, they're many and varied. We actually are aware of some of the shortcomings, I would say, with commercial cloud. And yes, there are great advantages to it, but we certainly appreciate the ability to run our own hardware stack. I suppose the disadvantages to having your own hardware stack is the need for renewal. You're not running the stack through operating expenses. You need capital investment when you need to renew. But I also think in some cases our stack and depreciating your own assets, I'm sure, I know is much cheaper than commercial cloud. And there are swings and roundabouts there. I'd be happy to talk about that in the Q&A, our experience. And of course, the key thing, to stop people from simply copying data anywhere, all of the data that comes in or out of Shore is controlled through our curated gateway. It's a piece of software that the Sax Institute developed and now is maintained with the help of Intersect. So that's a fantastic partnership. I think we're doing lots more development on the curated gateway, and I'll talk about that a bit more. So what do we do for information security? I mean, we've got two basic ways of thinking about the purpose of TREs. In our case, we sort of separate out the information security elements and the data governance elements, and they're both just as important as each other. Our information security, obviously, we're accredited to ISO 27001:2022. We find those regular audits both challenging, I think, in terms of preparation, but incredibly helpful in terms of identifying potential weaknesses in our systems and procedures. I think every year we're able to make some improvements to the way that we operate Shore. We also do regular, independent, and from a number of different experts, penetration testing of our systems. We do that anytime there's a change to architecture, and at least once a year. Again, we find that a really helpful process for identifying emerging or potential weaknesses and improvements to our security model. We've also got regular security partners that we're in constant contact with, and I think that's an important, no one person, and I don't think any one organisation should be thinking that they're the experts in information security. We definitely want to make use of as many outside observers as we possibly can. Obviously, we maintain very strong access controls. There's, individual passwords, individual client-side SSL certificates, so certificates that we issue and that are linked to an individual. We also, of course, have multi-factor authentication through apps on, generally these days, smartphones. We do have some people still using a fingerprint key, but we log an enormous amount of the ongoing sort of use of SURE. So there's an event management system, security information event management system, but we're also logging at that level of understanding when our users are on, what they're accessing in terms of workspaces while they're there, and everything that goes through the curated gateway is logged. So anything coming in or out is logged, and copies of it are kept in case we need to do investigations later. The data governance side, this is probably the human factors. It does relate to, the 5 safe people settings and outputs, but this is where a lot of in our experience, a lot of the value and a lot of the investment in operating a secure access environment goes. It's actually into the processes that make sure that we've got the right people accessing the data by reviewing ethics and data custodian approvals, making sure that users have a standard of information they're committed to through a deed poll governing what they can and can't do while they're using SURE. And similarly in delivering compulsory training for people before they use SURE to understand basics of information security, data governance, and particularly preventing statistical disclosure. I mentioned the data separation. I think despite the rise of enduring linked data assets, I think still most of the projects in SURE, and even where there are enduring linked data assets being used, most of the data being supplied for projects is still minimised. So researchers are still specifying the records and the variables required to answer their research questions. And I think that data separation and the data minimisation will remain really important parts of protecting privacy with linked health data for some time. I guess, I would love to see a less onerous system and a more enabling system. And perhaps we can talk later, secure access environments do have a role to play in encouraging broader access to data. We have our ISMS information security management system that ensures we have the right settings in terms of our policies and procedures. I've talked about the curated gateway. Custodians more and more are choosing to review outputs themselves and to take responsibility for the derived analysis, aggregated data that's leaving SURE. Again, that's something that we heard about in our recent stakeholder consultations and are very aware of as a potential issue for, more than potential, an issue for researchers when it causes delays in getting outputs approved. So we've got some things we're doing to address that too. SURE support, this is the thing that the clients talk about the most, in fact. I'm not going to spend ages on it now, but when we talk to clients, when we do our annual customer satisfaction surveys, the one thing they all say is how amazing our operations support is and how amazing our technical support is. We pride ourselves on it. Again, it requires ongoing investment to do this. but it is just so important, both from the data governance things that we've spoken about, but for the ability of researchers to know what they're getting, to be able to turn on their workspace on day one and have the virtual machines with the right software do what they need to do. I guess probably clients are most appreciative when something goes wrong, whether that's difficulty accessing their virtual machine for tech support, whether it's the need to add more researchers in operations support. These are important functions, and they're something that researchers appreciate. Our approach to fees really reflects the support of the PHRN. We talked about being an open access environment. So the Sax Institute's not-for-profit. SURE operates on a cost recovery basis with very significant financial support from the PHRN. As part of that, we need to publish our costs, our fees, and we do that on our website. And we'll shortly have our online calculator up and running. The costs for SURE are known at the beginning of usage. So we work out a fee schedule that allows us to continue operating SURE and continue investing in its improvement. But this is something, again, researchers, in our experience, talk about a lot, the ability to know how much it's going to cost at the beginning of the project. And so this is one of the advantages to running your own hardware stack, the ability to know what to charge people, as opposed to paying on usage, as you might get with most commercial cloud. We can share our virtual machines. This just means that researchers are able to minimise how much they're paying for SURE access. It means that if they've got, let's say, a supervisor and a PhD student, they can alternately use the machine. We do provide short-term upgrades to RAM and CPU. We find that a lot of researchers are looking for more performant virtual machines, particularly around the start of the project, where they might be doing large data management tasks or when data is updated. They might also want some towards the end, depending on what they're processing in terms of imaging. But that flexibility, we're really trying to make sure that we can provide a service that's akin to the better parts of commercial cloud computing. We can suspend virtual machines. Storage is available. We've got an enormous amount of storage, but sometimes it gets used. We had a situation with 8,000 whole genome sequence files in SURE last year, and we see that sort of throughput happen now and then. So the storage is more than sufficient. I think SURE is very scalable in terms of what we see as our emerging and current needs for health research. We're always designing the hardware stack with that in mind. It's an interesting place at the moment, I think, with the rise of AI data centers making some hardware more difficult to find and purchase. But generally, we've got plenty of storage, and we can enable these unusual new uses with orders of magnitude more storage required for whole genome sequence files, image files than traditional data. And as I said, we work with researchers to find the best configuration. We deliver it to their specification. That's what the operations team is so good at. The Curator Gateway, many of you will know about this, but it's a piece of software developed by the Sax Institute, and as I said, now supported by Intersect. It is a secure web-based application. It's the only way for files to come in and out. It's fully logged, and there's a human in the loop for every ingress and egress of data to or from SURE. This is something that we're investigating due to feedback from researchers about how we can make this process more efficient, more timely. And as I said, it is something that data custodians themselves tend to be doing. In some cases, the custodian and the ethics committee agree that the researcher, generally the chief investigator, can be responsible for this. But we do see, custodians wanting to actually do that themselves. Everything's logged. I've said that a few times. And we have been recently delivering multiple modes of curation where it might be necessary for a number of different officers with different roles to perform curation, where you might need 1, 2, 3 upvotes to let a file leave shore, just meaning that there could be multiple custodians needing to review it. Or in some cases, they're using new sort of ways of doing data governance and encouraging custodians to trust research groups by first having the research group do the curation and then having the custodian review it for a period of time with a view to then being able to know that you can trust that research group to do the curation appropriately and in time, which is a great benefit in terms of timeliness. Just let the research group do the curation themselves. So we're up to the Q&A part, and I'm going to stop sharing the screen because I haven't been able to see any of you while presenting. So I'll pause there and just ask for any questions. There's a lot of people still...
You were doing some AI?
Yeah, I will, Rod. Thanks, Roger. I will. I've given away some of my, closely guarded Easter eggs already, but let's just have a quick chat about that. That'd be really helpful. So we did, as Shamini mentioned, as one of the participants, as part of the SURE 3.0 enhancement project, again, that the PHRN and NCRIS have funded, we did a lot of consultations with all sorts of stakeholders, meaning researchers, ethicists, data custodians. And so we're at the point now where I'll just have a bit of a chat about what we heard in very high level terms, but more importantly, what we're doing to respond to what we heard. So as I said, funded by PHRN, we started this about a year ago, and the consultations would have been basically done up until about September, maybe October last year. We're in the middle of doing the upgrades now to SURE, and they're to be completed by June 2026. This is what we heard. As I said, there's a high degree of user satisfaction for SURE. We tried not just to talk to the usual suspects who would be, positive about us. We did cast the net quite widely in terms of potential users as well. We heard that for custodians, they really, they love the Curator Gateway. For researchers, they love the service desk. And of course, people sort of are aware of and thankful for the impact of SURE over the last 15 years. The legacy of enabling access to data linkage was very strong. People are starting to demand more computing power. They want more flexible fee structures as well, particularly that reflect the nature of academic research that might not be full-time, that might be sort of episodic in terms of teaching and research patterns. And really they want streamlined data curation. So I've sort of put that as a separate point down the bottom as well. It was one of the most consistent things that we heard was the effect of delays in reviewing outputs, and the need to address that. It is something that to this point has required a lot of human effort. It does take time, and so, as I've said, we're going to be addressing that. There's a lot of growing interest in using AI and LLMs inside SURE. We know that it's going to require an ethics lens, a data governance lens, and both a enabling infrastructure, but also a information security adjustment as people use them more. Strangely, some of the most basic stuff is the number of analysts now who are writing their code using large language models. And I think one of the questions might have been sort of alluding to this idea that that code as text is a risk at ingress. A lot of our researchers are doing that. They're writing their code in a large language model externally and then importing it. A lot of people use it for translation between different languages as well. We did ask about interoperability, and look, we did get a minority of stakeholders thinking about particularly interjurisdictional interoperability, which is a long-standing issue and something I know the PHRN are really focused on and have been for many years, enabling interjurisdictional linkage. But yeah, there were some who did note that, particularly when it came to digital biobanks, there was an opportunity to better integrate the platforms so that you weren't using a couple of SREs or multiple platforms, whether they're secure or not. But a large number really had no view on the need for interoperability, and I think it reflects our users who tend to be epidemiologists working on fairly well understood, routinely linked data sets. People identified trusted user models as with enduring linked data assets as potentially a great improvement to the efficiency and effectiveness of research. Data custodians, were really focused on being able to trust users through robust and repeated training, accreditation of researchers, and I think the curation comes up again because if you're removing one of the controls in terms of data minimisation at the usage stage, perhaps you need to have additional controls applied at the data egress curation stage. So that's a top summary of what we heard. There's a lot more detail than that, but what we're doing about it, well, we're doing a new training regime that will be able to be more easily repeated annually and will be better designed. We're just redesigning our fee structure again to provide additional flexibility and to some extent to recognise the effect of proprietary software on costs for all users. It's one of the biggest issues, I think, with any secure access environment, the cost of the common and not so common analysis programs. Licenses are becoming more and more expensive. We have, really good pricing deals with some of our suppliers. We really appreciate that. But nevertheless, we think it's fair that there's some user pays involved. Open source platforms like OpenStack, this is just a no-brainer for us. It's really about improving our efficiency and our ability to scale efficiently. So we're really redesigning the architecture to require much less manual setup for standard services. And of course, the one I was excited about, a proof of concept project for AI-assisted curation, just to help data custodians and other reviewers know, be able to better identify the risks in any data set that they're exporting. And look, any queries about SURE, the best email address is sure.admin@saxinstitute.org.au, and the operations team is there 5 days a week, 8 hours a day to respond to your questions.
Okay, well, I'd just like to thank you, Matt, for that fantastic presentation. And it's good to see that SURE's evolving as well and that you're not standing still, and that, it's good to see these enhancements.
Well, as I mentioned, our ability to fund the enhancements is fantastic, and we really do rely on that NCRIS and PHRN support, which we have had in spades for 15 years. Yeah.
And I'd just like to thank everybody for attending today and listening to Matt. And we will make this presentation available on our website. We have a series of unlock sessions. We'll probably have another 3 this year. And just to promote, we also had Keypoints talk last year, and they demonstrated their secure research environments. And that recording is available on our website. That's also a very interesting recording. So yeah, thanks once again, Matt. And that concludes Unlock for today. So thanks everyone for attending.
Thank you.